Let's get into this one. 2 weeks ago, when the Packers were sitting at 4-6, Aaron Rodgers didn't tell us to relax this time, but instead he came with a bold prediction. I feel like we can run the table. They've been undefeated since, but Sunday is going to be a tough test when the Seattle Seahawks and the Legion of Boom come to town without Earl Thomas. They've won 4 of their last 5. Green Bay is 2 games behind Detroit in the NFC North and has gotten back into the wild card chase where it trails Tampa Bay 1 game. Seattle battling Detroit for a first-round bye. Stephen A. Smith, who would you rather have in this game, Russell Wilson or that bad man Aaron Rodgers?
Well, there ain't nothing to talk about here. I don't give a damn what struggles the Green Bay Packers are having. I'm going to say it for you again. He's a bad man. I'm talking about Aaron Rodgers, okay? This is a bad year, all right? This is a struggling year. I mean, they're 6-6 after all, Max. Didn't you know? They're just 6-6. Just some average team, and I guess that means Aaron Rodgers is an average quarterback. Let me look at the numbers here. These are average numbers. I mean, 12 games, okay? 12 games, he already has 3,283 yards passing, 27 touchdowns. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. 7 interceptions. Oh, my Lord, let's stop the presses. Let's just stop the presses. 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. How horrible. Aaron Rodgers is just horrible. 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, quarterback rating of 98, QBR of 72.9, basically 73. Just horrible. Aaron Rodgers with Jordy Nelson, clearly not himself. With Randall Cobb, clearly not himself. Richard Rodgers, non-existent. Eddie Lacy, non-existent. Okay, Devontae Adams, we're looking for him to be more consistent. Mike McCarthy calling plays again after not calling plays the previous year or two. Aaron Rodgers, my God. Aaron Rodgers, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Aaron Rodgers must be awful. You think? Stop the nonsense. This is a bad brother. Personal problems, everybody getting in his business, his damn brother betraying him, going on national TV talking about family business and all of this other stuff. This dude still finds a way to go out there and perform like this. He is such a bad man that even with those numbers that I sat up there and said, we're still thinking it's average. Why? Because it's Aaron Rodgers. Had this been Jay Cutler, we would have been talking about league MVP honors. But it's Aaron Rodgers, so it doesn't measure up. Because he's so great that these numbers are relatively pedestrian for him. Anytime, any place, anywhere, I need a quarterback, one dude, to get it done for me on one Sunday afternoon or a Monday night or whatever. I'm going with Aaron Rodgers. I don't give a damn what anybody said. Why, Max? Because he's a bad man. That's why.
So let me get this straight. Aaron Rodgers is good at football. I mean, look, Aaron Rodgers has more intrinsic ability than Russell Wilson. Aaron Rodgers, until the beginning of last year, I thought was clearly the best player in football. And I still believe it's in there somewhere. It's possible he's already in decline, or that he's going through a transitional period between his prime and his adjustment to his kind of like second prime. That sometimes happens to athletes. Their bodies change just a little bit, almost imperceptibly, and they have to figure out how to adjust to that. And there's a year or two of a dip. And obviously there are issues with the team, etc. It's tough to argue against Aaron Rodgers. But Russell Wilson in the second half of last year was the best quarterback in football. He was so much better than Aaron Rodgers. He was so much better than Tom Brady. It was embarrassing in the second half. The only quarterback in the NFL comparable to him, but demonstrably inferior in the second half, was Cam Newton, who won the MVP. Now, Russell Wilson is playing behind a bad offensive line all year. No doubt about it. He's been hurt all year. And in fact, I think that there's actually an argument for Russell Wilson, not that he should be the MVP at this point, but that he deserves some consideration for keeping his team among the elite when he's been hurt, and maybe shouldn't have even been out there, when he's been playing behind that bad offensive line, etc. But Russell Wilson is a guy now entering his prime. And Aaron Rodgers, whether he's exiting it or adjusting or the team's just not as good, is clearly not as good as he was. I mean, not just all this year and last year. It's last year, too. It's almost 2 years now that he hasn't still excellent because he's arguably the greatest ever when he was at his best, but not the same guy over the last 2 years. Still elite, not quite the same guy as Russell Wilson's entering his prime. And then you factor in, if you ask, who would you rather have, what defenses are they facing? How about the Legion of Boom? How would you like to face? You want to face the Legion of Boom with Aaron Rodgers or that Green Bay defense with Russell Wilson? I'll take the Green Bay defense with Russell Wilson, and the answer for this game is Russell Wilson.
Well, I get where you're coming from in terms of taking Russell Wilson against the Green Bay defense, because one would argue Green Bay doesn't have a defense, not with that pathetic, awful secondary. You're absolutely right about that. But I guess my mentality is if I need a quarterback for one game, I'm going with Aaron Rodgers all day, every day, because he's a bad boy. It's just that simple. I think he can scramble almost as well, not quite, but almost as well as Russell Wilson. I think he can throw the football considerably better than Russell Wilson. A matter of fact, I believe that if Aaron Rodgers had a Doug Baldwin, if Aaron Rodgers had a Jimmy Graham, if Aaron Rodgers had dudes that showed up like that, he'd be throwing about 45 to 50 touchdowns and still wouldn't crack 10 interceptions in a season. That's how bad this brother is. Aaron Rodgers is a special dude. All of this stuff or this epitaph, people are mistaken. This dude is on another level. It's just that they got a whole bunch of problems in Green Bay that are not his fault. I don't care what anybody says.
But it's difficult to imagine Green Bay. If you like Green Bay in this game, it's because it's difficult to imagine them falling under 500, not making the playoffs because Aaron Rodgers is their quarterback. He's that great. Even over the last 2 seasons, he's that great. Russell Wilson has been over the last now full season, if you take the second half of last year and so far this year, when you consider the production in the second half of last year and how he's kept this team together this year, forget about the stats this year, just the fact that they've won with him on the field, in spite of the fact he shouldn't have been out there, in my opinion, a couple games. I don't know if there's been a more valuable player in the NFL over that entire time than Russell Wilson.
Okay, no more hypotheticals, gentlemen. Seattle's favored by 3. Who you got winning this game, Max?
Seattle.
Easily for me, Seattle, because I think Green Bay's defense is awful. It won't be Aaron Rodgers' fault. He'll do what he can, but the Legion of Boom is still lethal, and Green Bay's defense, meaning that secondary primarily, is absolutely positively non-existent. Not only do I have no expectations for them, I have no respect for that secondary right now. What I saw against the Washington Redskins a couple of weeks ago, it affected me so greatly. It's one of the rare times I watched a team and looked at a secondary and said, I'm really not sure these dudes belong in the NFL. Sam Shields been out all year. He's hurt. But there's no reason on earth that a secondary should look as bad as that secondary look. At least with the Jets, we saw them tanking. We saw them give up and just not care. Green Bay cared. They just had a flagrant inability to do anything. I think Alabama and Jalen Hurts as a freshman would have went up against and boded well against that Green Bay secondary that I saw against the Washington Redskins a few weeks back. It was that bad. It was that bad.
All right, no Earl Thomas. We'll see if Aaron Rodgers can take advantage of that there. But we're going to take a hard left turn right now, because up next, we want to get into a serious subject with the Giants. And running back Nikita Whitlock had his home vandalized twice with racist graffiti. His teammate Victor Cruz had some strong comments on that situation yesterday. Take a listen. We'll react after the break. Giants fullback Nikita Whitlock's home was robbed on Tuesday night. And Whitlock told WCBS TV that burglars scrawled items that included a swastika, the letters KKK, and the phrase, "Go back to Africa," in Trump spelled out on the walls. Whitlock's teammate Victor Cruz had this to say about the incident.
There's a certain mindset of a person or of people that follow Donald Trump. If you listen to anything that he says, if you listen to the comments that he's made about women, or the comments he's made about minorities, or the comments he's made about, people of that he feels are somewhat of lesser value, they haven't been positive. For someone to vandalize someone's house and write Trump's name or whatever they wrote on the walls is just proving that exact fact that I'm saying, that people that may follow him aren't necessarily the most positive people in our communities.
Max, is Victor Cruz right?
Yep. Of course he is. Look, I know, forgive me for those who come to sports to escape the real world. I get that. I'm sympathetic to that idea. And as a consumer of sports and sports talk, sometimes when this stuff goes on, as a consumer, I'm like, okay, I just want to escape and talk about the game. But here's the intersection of sports and life and real life, and in this case, politics. Fact of the matter is that Donald Trump was endorsed by the Ku Klux Klan. That's a fact. I'm not making that up. And that there was an appeal to white nationalists. How else can you say these things? And that this is not the first time that that something like this has happened since the election, and some reference to Trump was made, Trump country, Trump's America. And to Donald Trump's credit, he did, in a nationally televised broadcast, at one point say it should stop. That's terrible. But a couple things need to happen. Either he needs to do that every time something like this becomes public information, or if the idea is this is happening so much that he couldn't possibly, then he needs to address that too, doesn't he? I agree with Victor Cruz.
I don't disagree with a single word that you just articulated, Max. You're right. But I'm not going to stop there. See, the only issue that I have with what Victor Cruz said is that it implies that this stuff came about because of Trump's rhetoric and his willingness to appeal to that base. I would argue that clearly it existed long before Trump ever decided to run for the presidency. And it certainly was put on display when we had President Barack Obama inaugurated in 2008. We saw an elected official scream "you lie," very, very disrespectful towards our president. If I remember correctly, that elected official was from South Carolina. We saw and heard our first lady and the first family compared to apes and beyond. We saw a president highly intelligent, highly accomplished, earned what he had achieved, just throwing away the kind of stereotypes, other folks in America tried to throw in his direction, just bulldozed right through them, and they still came at him with similar rhetoric. And so my point in saying all of that is to say, I think it's a mistake for folks to sit up there and act like, oh, Trump did this. He certainly wasn't as responsible as we would like a presidential candidate to be in terms of the rhetoric that he was spewing and what it ultimately assisted in further inciting. But let's not act like it did not exist until he started running for the presidency. This stuff has been going on for a long time. It certainly went on against our president. And the fact is that it has and always will continue to happen. And it's foolhardy to believe that because Trump is the president now, now these folks are coming out they've been out. If anything, he might have made them feel a little bit more comfortable about it, but they've always been there and they've always been conducting themselves that way. It's just that it's a bit more conspicuous now than it was in the past.
Yeah, it's an ugly America, an ugly side of America that we're seeing. And by the way, in terms of emboldening that sort of thing or fomenting the kind of anti-Obama stuff based on things other than the merit, based on race, which was something I thought at the time, maybe this is being overstated. Clearly it wasn't. And Donald Trump, of course, was a major booster of the birther movement against Obama, which he later denied or kind of denied, questioning the birth certificate, et cetera. I would say that what we're seeing is there's a term revanchist, which means you want to take back stuff that you lost. And clearly, he's not president yet, by the way, Stephen A. He's president-elect, appealed to that idea with racist white people who seem to want to take back gains made during the civil rights movement, or at least are angry about it, or maybe angry about Obama. I don't know. I don't want this to turn into a political show at the moment. But Victor Cruz pointed something out which is undeniably true. And hopefully the president-elect will continue, as he did the one time, to, in strong language, denounce this kind of behavior from his supporters.
Well,
how do we know he's a supporter? Because he scrawled Trump after scrawling swastikas. So it's a admitted supporter. And
he definitely
the president-elect should in strong language, let everyone know.
Just coming out and giving strong language is not enough. He needs to be more active, not just with his words, but with his actions in denouncing such stuff. Because what the president-elect needs to really, really embrace and to understand that his presidency, doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell of being successful if he doesn't address this matter. Those ignorant, racist few out there very well may not epitomize everybody that voted for Trump. I refuse to believe that 60+ million people in this country, voted for Trump because they hate black people. I don't want to hear that. There are people that wanted to feed their families. There are people that did it because they didn't care about the social issues. All they cared about was the economics, and they thought change. And that, whether we will agree with them or not, we can't be as irresponsible as the racist out there. And well, I'm just saying, we can't be. I just talk about how they feel. I'm not debating the economy. That's how they felt.
Sure.
What I'm saying is that we can't sit up there and be as irresponsible as those hate mongers, as those racists, in saying that anybody who voted for him, they must be like those people. There are a lot of people that don't feel the way those racists feel, and they voted for Trump for a whole different reason. And if we don't respect where they're coming from and be willing to engage in dialogue and debate based on that level, then we're no better than the racist that we're decrying right now. We have a responsibility to be that way. No, that's not true.
We are better. No, that's not true. We are still better than the racists, but you're right. It is a lowering of kind of decent standards, because many of the voters were also just people susceptible to low-quality information.
Yep. And I just want to add one more thing. Obviously, at the end of the day, after a long, hard day's work, you go home to try to feel safe. And I feel so sorry for Nikita, how awful that is, that he can no longer feel safe in his own home. And I hope they find these cowards that did this and they're punished appropriately.